Hi everyone, Sue from IC Sugar. We're going to learn how to make a bucket cake today. It's really cute little versatile cake and you can use this for a lot of applications, pot plants or anything else that you might like this shape for. I've used a croquembouche tin. I find that this is a really cool cake pan and has the perfect shape for what we're looking for today. You would have noticed at the bottom of the tin I actually had a half dome um, insert, and the reason I put that in is simply so I didn't have to bake more cake mix than what I needed. I've baked a marble mud today, so it's half vanilla, half white and half chocolate mud. I haven't filled it with ganache simply because I thought that was probably overkill, and we didn't need it for this particular one. It's not a large cake. The my ganache I whip up myself. You can buy chocolate ganache from cake stores, and I have used a number of different pre-mix chocolate ganache recipes in the past, but I really prefer my own, and I use at the moment Nestle, Jamaica, and cream. So when you whip it up, I just try to make sure that it's not too thick and not too thin. If you have it too runny, it sort of tends to come off and it doesn't set as firm as I would like. Actually, you can see here at the moment, I'm just going to turn this cake upside down because I was having a lot of trouble ganaching it. It was a really small cake and it just kept sliding off the board, so it was super annoying. So I just tipped it upside down and finished it this way, which I found to be much easier, the larger base on the bottom. With this cake today, you can see that we're going to use sugar flowers. I haven't shown you in this tutorial how to make the sugar flowers. They take quite a long time, so I think we'll save that for another session. You can see here that I put in a board, a really small board, covered it in wax paper, so when I turned it upside down like this, the tin wasn't actually going to sink into the cake. Okay, so now we're rolling out our sugar paste. I have pre-kneaded it. I tend to have my sugar paste probably, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch thick, I guess. Not too thin. I find if it is too thin, it sort of tends to sag over the sides and pulls, which is not a great look. Okay, just a little bit of water. You can use any sort of perhaps sort of cake glue or egg white or anything that you might like just to dampen the side of the cake. Over the years, as actually in this video, I have actually measured the size of the sugar paste that I need, which which is pretty good or interesting for me because I don't normally do it. And normally I just, because I've been making cakes for so long, I find that I have a habit of just knowing how much I need to put on, and that's probably not great for you guys. So I just used a just a, I don't know, whatever you might have handy, a ruler or tape measure, or I think in that case I just used a paintbrush just roughly to get the size that I need. So just smoothing it down now. It's pretty easy shape actually to ice, which is really good. Over the years I've used different smoothers, different cake utensils. I find that these are probably the easiest to use and to manipulate. I'm just cutting it off. Nothing too exciting here. I probably wasn't really particular about getting this level because you'll see when we turn it upside down, we trim it off again anyway. So I just really wouldn't worry too much about making sure it's all perfect whilst it's upside down. We're really just wanting to remove the excess sugar paste just to make it easy for you. Remembering all the time that this is still sitting on that little board, and you'll see when we turn this upside down, we take that off. So just removing some of the, or making a small hole in the top so I can actually pour in some chocolate, and I'm going to place my ice board upside down in a minute on the top of this, and the chocolate is just to hold it in place. Now, for anyone who hasn't seen me ice a board, if you watch the Winnie the Pooh tutorial, I show you there how to do it. So this board I actually would have done a couple of days before or a day before and just let it set overnight. And I have used an imprint in it, just a sort of a cobblestone imprint to give it a little bit of interest. Okay, just straightening it up on the board and going around now and just smoothing down all the lumps and bumps. I don't know what happened there on the right. Looks like my rolling pin must have rolled for some reason. Anyway. Okay, so pulling off the off that little board that you saw and just cutting or trimming away the excess at the top. In a minute, I do take a knife, as you can see, and just trim it so it's level with the top of your cake. I have some paper towel there because obviously every time I go to slice it, I'm getting chocolate ganache on the knife. And if you then go back and re-slice it, all you're going to end up doing is leaving chocolate ganache on your white parts, which you don't want to do. As we had a board in the top, there was a slight indent, so I've just filled it all and leveled the whole top of this out with chocolate ganache. So it seems like I had the video sitting crooked when I filmed this, so my apologies. But I did include that because I wanted to show you the little mold that I used to create the handles for this cake. So it's just a boating mold, and it's just a rope. So I did the handles for this the day before, wired them and let them set overnight. This is just a little freeform impression mat, and it has a number of different patterns on it. I've just chosen this little leaf style. It just really was the look that I was wanting. You can use whatever you want. You could probably use lace, or you can use I don't know, any pattern that you might like depending on the look that you're wanting. So what I'm putting on here is just some Wilton white and some very pale pink food colouring. And at the moment, I'm just putting in some grey just to fill in the pattern. So you'll see that when you eventually wipe it all off, it just simply highlights the pattern of the imprints that you're using. And I always use clean paper towel to do that. This is sort of a shabby chic look, so I didn't put a lot of colour on it, but it is a really, really pale pink, and it just sort of sits, you just don't really want white. So you can do whatever colour you want, whatever suits this theme that you're looking for. So I'm doing the same on the board because it does have an imprint and it is a cobblestone. I'm really just rubbing over some colour and it's just a really pale grey, and you'll see that I will go through here in a minute and I'm just rubbing it all off again with paper towel just to highlight that cobblestone. And in the background here you'll see that I've got my roses drying and I've got the handles that are drying. So I am painting the rose. So this is probably, I don't paint a lot of roses, so I did have a picture on my iPhone of something that I liked that was reasonably similar. And it's quite interesting because with this particular cake, I actually went around and repainted the same picture 4 times, and every single one looked entirely different. So I guess my thing here is just nothing needs to be perfect. Like, this is a cake. You don't need to have 4 perfect roses sitting on a cake. If they're all different, they're all different. It doesn't really matter. So when I paint, I use a lot of white powder, which I mix with vodka or the Wilton white, which is already a liquid. And I pre-mix my colours that I like and have it sitting on a plate next to me. And I often find that I go through put the colors in the areas that I want, and then I blend accordingly. And then if you haven't quite got the right shade, you can always add over it. The thing that's really important to remember is to use vodka when you mix your colors. For many years, I actually used water, and I was often wondering why my colors were seeping into the cake and weren't actually staying on the surface and weren't as vibrant as what I first painted. And that's because I was using the wrong medium. So definitely go for a pure vodka. Doesn't need to be expensive, but um, it's probably the best to use. So you'll see here we're just blending. And I haven't used a pattern. I'm just copying off something. If you have something that has to be precise, then I have a couple of other tutorials where you'll see that I've gone and copied it with wax paper and cut it out as I did with a Mickey that I have filmed, and then sort of trace it out on the cake if you want something precise. But this is really free form, and with a shabby chic look, it sort of doesn't really matter too much if it's not perfect. Always a good idea if, particularly with cake paint or cake colours, the areas that you want white, make sure you leave them quite light. You can't paint them dark and then paint over with light. You just won't get the same shade. It's not like all paints that you can layer on top or on top. It just sort of doesn't work. So find an outline, find to have the shading or the dark areas that you want, but leave the others reasonably light, or you just won't get the look that you're wanting. So this was the most perfect of the 4 roses that I that I painted. I think by the time I got around to the 4th one, I started getting a bit over it. So you'll see later on that they all look different, and they probably got worse as I went along. But hey, that's okay. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, it's sort of this particular cake. It doesn't need to be perfect. So just filling in some shading. And now we've just moved on to the little rosebuds. Again, it's exactly the same way. So just the outline, again, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just roughly get the shape that you want, and have a look at rosebuds. You'll see that they've got a dark point at the top and they're lighter in the middle. And I've just outlined it here. So what I do when I design a cake, particularly with a painting, I just go around and more or less have a look at the aesthetic of the cake. Like, it would look quite silly if you put all your 4 roses or 3 roses or whatever you're doing all in one spot. So I sort of try to space things out evenly, and so it sort of looks pleasing. And then you can see, like here, I've sort of gone through to start filling in the various gaps and just getting the look that I'm wanting. With the leaf work that I'm doing now, I haven't been overly particular about my colour or my location. I'm just filling in spots. If you look at any leaf, tree, bush in nature, most of it is not defined, so it's sort of quite blurry. So what I've done here is I've really just gone through and patted in the colours that I've wanted, and in a couple of shades of green. I haven't been overly particular, and now I'm just joining them all together so it looks like they're supposed to be there, and I haven't just dumped them in for the sake of just putting them there because I've got nothing better to do. So just joining them all through now, and then I go through in a minute and I start filling in some darker, more defined shapes over the top. And in a minute I go through and I use a couple of other shades, because again, in nature not everything is just one green tone. You find that there's browns and there's reds and there's oranges and there's all sorts of colours, but we've got a pink cake, so putting orange and other colours on is not great. So I've just used sort of brown or a goldy tone through the leaf. Right, so now we've moved to putting the sugar flowers on. I pre-made these. You don't need to use sugar flowers. I mean, you can buy sugar flowers, you can hand make your sugar flowers, you could use silk flowers or anything like that. So for the purposes of this, I've just put them all in the position that I'm wanting them, and then I go down later and stick them all down. I have dusted all of these, so I've used some petal dust and I've actually airbrushed a few of them. All right, putting the leaf on, and you can see that my handles are now on, and we've just about finished. Okay, this is the end product. With the leaf, I used a small leaf pattern leaf veiner, and I just inserted the leaves in later and just stuck them on with a little bit of glue. There's nothing more complicated than that. And I found a couple of pre-made butterflies that I liked, so I've put them on, so you can or not if you don't want to. I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you want any more videos, feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you.